What's up, guys? Ethan Hammond here. So we need to talk about something called the parasympathetic nervous system, which is something that's extraordinarily important when we are discussing rehab of an athlete or a human being, just in terms of being able to heal and to adapt and to make changes. The optimization of our nervous system and how our nervous system is responding in the moment plays a huge role in how our body changes and makes adaptations. So, for example, when we talk about being stressed out, now there's a couple different ways that we'll talk about like the specific terminology of being stressed, but we have being stressed, we have being in a fight or flight response, which a lot of you will be familiar with, and we also have the physiological term, which is the sympathetic nervous system, which is kind of like the component of your central nervous system, your brain, that regulates a stress response and creates a stress response. So it's important to understand that when we are going through stress, there's a purpose behind this. Mother Nature has been developing our bodies and, all of nature for a really long time. Nothing like this happens by accident. Nothing happens without purpose. So when we talk about stress, we have to understand that there's a purpose behind stress and of being in that sympathetic response. And this is to allow us to navigate a stress response, a fight or flight response, something that's very threatening to our bodies. So for example, if you like walk out your front door and there's very abruptly just out of nowhere like a tiger that's there and it growls at you, like it roars, and it's like you get this intention from it, like it's going to kill you now. You're going to experience a stress response. You're going to have a massive dump of cortisol and adrenaline into your body, and those hormones, they're neither good nor bad. They exist to create different physiological symptoms in our bodies to allow us to better survive a stressor as well as possible. Now, we can understand that if I get into a really severe circumstance, like I'm about to be mauled by a tiger, and I'm probably not going to survive, but I might. I'm going to fight to the death, and we'll see what happens. Um, so we can understand that, and my body's going to go through a whole lot of different processes to help me to survive that better. So a few things that we can see here is that when I become stressed out, my brain, in certain regards, is going to start to kind of slow down and shut down. What that means is that as my brain gets hotter and more stressed out, my ability to think really critically, my ability to perform things like basic mathematics or complex mathematics, any kind of maths, and just having like these really like conscientious cognitive processes, it goes down. When you're in a really stressful encounter, you don't tend to think very much. You feel and you move. You don't think and then move. And if you do think or think too much, you have a tendency to actually freeze and to not have any idea what to do. Instead of following instinct, you just freeze and shut down. And that can be a component of that. Our respiration changes as well. So our rate of breathing, we all know that when we become suddenly stressed, there's often a big gasp that's involved with that. Like if you suddenly turn a corner and there's a big stressor there, like someone startles you, you gasp, you take this big, massive inhale. So your breathing rate is going to become shallow, it's going to become faster because it's not so deep, and that faster rate of breathing helps to actually stimulate adrenaline to flow. So you can actually go at any point of your life, literally any moment, you can start breathing really fast, and you can have an adrenaline dump. You can have these stress hormones come out to your body, and you can feel that with like your heart rate increasing, your body temperature might increase. And that's another thing that happens with this, with your respiration, is that your heart rate also goes up, your body temperature goes up. And that's to help your metabolism function faster, because there's going to be a lot more chemistry that needs to happen because you need to be more active. Circulation is going to massively increase. Your blood pressure skyrockets when you are stressed. And your digestive system begins to shut down, to either slow down or completely slow down depending on the severity of the stress. And we'll talk about how severity will alter these things to a degree. But like your saliva production will slow down and cease. Your stomach acid production will slow down and cease. And a process called peristalsis will slow down and or cease. Peristalsis is where your intestines actually create these wave-like contractions in them to help move the bolus of food through them. And at the same time as this, your immune system will stop working. Your lymphatic system will be under a lot of pressure, and it won't be able to filter out crap as well. And a way we can kind of examine these different aspects of the physiology is we're thinking, when I'm stressed, what do I actually need inside my body to be happening in order to survive the stressor? Like, I don't really need to be able to recite Shakespeare when I'm being threatened. I don't need to be able to go through a lot of complex mathematics when I'm threatened. That's not important, and my ability to do that drastically goes down. This is something that CrossFitters really hate. At the end of the class, they've gone through their workout, which is a stressor. It involves the exact same chemistry, having a lot of cortisol and adrenaline going. And when that workout demands a score that demands that we have some sort of mathematics going on at the end, I got to add or multiply or subtract things and I have to think about the numbers, it's really aggravating to people, myself included, because we don't like to do math, probably at the best of times, but especially after a workout, it's not as easy. Even using a calculator, it can be harder to really think about the numbers that we need to input. And this is a real thing. Been a lot of research on this. The hotter your brain gets and the more stressed out it is, the harder it is to perform things like mathematics and to think really critically about things. So it's not needed. When you're under a lot of pressure, you don't need to be digesting that sandwich you ate a few hours ago. In fact, if there's food directly immediately in your stomach, it was just recently consumed, and if the stressor you experience is severe enough, you may just simply throw it up. Or on the reverse end, if it's down your colon, if there's enough of it, you may just simply evacuate when you experience that stressor. And that's to help your body survive the stressor better. Less weight in your body, less stuff for your insides to be having to deal with. And your immune system, you don't have to be worrying about healing from that cut you got the other day. You're more focused on surviving that stress. So the aspects of your physiology that aren't so important in that moment shut down, and the components that are much more important for making you more athletic, more strong, more capable of ignoring pain, and just moving through what you need to do to survive the stressor, they get elevated. And something we have to understand about the stress response is that it exists on a spectrum. And this is something that I'll say a lot kind of through this presentation, is that when you go through a workout or when you are having a fight to the literal death or someone trying to murder you, the exact chemistry of that is exactly the same. This magnitude at which the stress hormones are pumped down to your body are going to be different, but that's the only difference. What creates stress, hormonally speaking, is the same. The chemistry is the same. It's just the magnitude that shifts. So you can have a small stress response, like going through a mild workout, and you're still going to experience that same chemistry. So all of these factors happen with your ability to think, your respiration, your digestion. All of these things still happen, just not so much. There wouldn't be any reason for it to happen as severely as if you are in a fight, if you're going through like a mild workout. So your immune system will still be a little bit weaker because you don't need it during a workout. But if you are going through a fight, white blood cell production is going to completely stop. Your digestive system is going to completely shut down. So as we're going through this, we have to understand there's this spectrum that it exists on. And so if I'm just moderately stressed out, actually we'll just say mildly, if I'm mildly stressed out all the time, it's not the same as being severely stressed out all the time, but it is still stress and it's still chronic. So if you have a lifestyle where you are constantly stressed out by stuff, your sleep is horrible, you have a horrible breakfast that's just like cereal, it's nothing but sugar, nothing but carbs, and then you go to a job that you hate, surrounded by people that you don't trust, where you're eating even more food that's just horrible for your body, and you get home and you go to sleep, and it's the same cycle over and over again. Horrible night's sleep, horrible nutrition, horrible social life. Things are very stressful, and there are people with lives like that, and it's just constant stress all day long, going on for weeks, months, years, and decades even. So we can imagine what's happening to that person's physiology as they're remaining in this stress response all the time. These different symptoms that we've gone through in terms of the physiology, they remain chronic. So it's not like they aren't able to digest at all. Obviously they can, but their capacity for digestion is severely compromised. It's weaker, it's slower. You don't have as much stomach acid production. That means it's easier for chunks of food to make into your intestine. Depending on what you're eating, you may have something like leaky gut syndrome, especially if there's a lot of phytic acid and lectins and gluten in your diet. Maybe that's tearing up your intestines, and now you have larger undigested chunks of food that can seep out through your intestine and directly into your bloodstream. That creates a massive immune response because your immune system needs to kick in and digest that for you because you couldn't do it in your digestive tract. but your immune system is also going to be a lot weaker. Your white blood cell production doesn't really happen as much when you are stressed out, because that's not something that's important when you're surviving a threat. But when your lifestyle is a threat, this is just happening all the time. Okay, so if we examine all these collectively, we can really understand how it's useful to get through a stressful encounter, and that's really important. If we didn't go through these things during stress, we would not be able to survive stress as well. Just think about it during a workout. When you warm up, you are intentionally and gradually making these different physiological reactions happen so that you can get through the workout. Think about like your blood pressure. If your blood pressure stays appropriately low for like a normal resting state, you aren't going to work out very well. Your blood pressure isn't going to be as high. You're not going to be able to deliver your air, your oxygen to your blood as well. The chemistry isn't going to be able to happen as fast. In fact, so I've never actually seen this myself. I've only ever heard stories, and so because of that, I'm not sure how legitimate it is, but people say that this has happened either to them or they've seen like teammates or athletes go through this, where you are going through a very high intensity workout and then you just suddenly stop moving and you pass out. Apparently that happens to people, and what we can understand, and this same aspect happens with fainting, which is that you experience this big stress and your body will rebound out of that very abruptly, and there's such a massive shift in your blood pressure. It's suddenly really, really high. Your body doesn't like it to be that high, especially in the case of fainting. You suddenly get exposed to this massive stressor. You have your sympathetic nervous system that massively engages all of a sudden, can happen literally in a second, and your body doesn't like that and tries to regulate itself, which is something it's always trying to do, and it tries to engage the parasympathetic nervous system to bring you down. So parasympathetic being the opposite of sympathetic, literally meaning like around the sympathetic system. And that can cause such a massive change in your blood pressure that you pass out. That's what we call fainting. And similar thing can apparently happen in athletics as well. And that's why we always encourage athletes to, don't just simply lay down and stop moving after a hard workout. Get up, keep walking, regulate your breathing as much as you can, and we start to gradually cool down in the same way we gradually warm up into that chemistry of exercise, which is the chemistry of stress, just at a lower magnitude, probably. So we have to understand that stress is good, but it's only meant to be something that we dip our feet into every so often, as is the case with exercise. We cannot exercise all day, every day. That cannot be a lifestyle for us because our bodies will break, we will shut down, we can't survive like that. You'll be chronically injured, you will lose all motivation for actually exercising, your body will come to hate it, it will be something that you are forcing yourself to do, and it will not be a pleasant experience. You will not sustain it. So stress has this purpose, but it's not meant to be something that we really exist in for a long period of time. It should be a case, so like I'm tracing out the grid line on my camera. It's a case of like I wake up and maybe first thing in the morning I go to the gym and I have my stressor and then I'm done with it. And then for the rest of the day, I'm relaxed. So my finger's like indicating the line of stress levels. Where my line is where my stress levels need to be normally, like I'm in a relaxed state. So if I go up a little bit, that's stress. So if I wake up, let's take my example from before. If I wake up from a crappy night's sleep, I'm already a little bit more stressed out. Let's say I go to the gym afterwards and I don't cool down, then I'm really stressed out. I may cool down a little bit, then I go to work and it's a place that I absolutely hate. It's surrounded by a bunch of people that I don't trust at all, so I don't feel safe around them. And I'm living a lifestyle with my stress levels being higher. When we have chronically high stress levels, we cannot heal as well. So when we talk about healing from athletic injuries and having chronic pain, we have to emphasize this point of I need to become parasympathetic. I need to get into my rest and digest mode. So the exact opposite of the sympathetic. When we talk about the parasympathetic system, we can take all of the physiological aspects we spoke about before and basically turn them around. So your ability to think and to memorize things, which that's kind of a complex study and this isn't a hard and fast rule, but your ability to think critically increases when you are more relaxed. Your breathing will have a tendency to be a lot slower and a lot deeper, going down into your belly. Your blood pressure is going to come down, your salivary production is going to go up, your stomach acid production is going to go up to an appropriate level, and your ability for your intestines to move food through is going to increase a lot as well, up to an appropriate level. Your immune system will increase and your lymphatic system will be much more relaxed, allowing the lymph fluid that drains the waste out of metabolic processes out so they can be eaten up by my immune system. So in order to heal appropriately and to heal, kind of in a timely manner, we have to emphasize this idea of being parasympathetic and of having a lifestyle of being parasympathetic as much as possible. So two big components with this is that we need to physiologically, neurologically, metabolically, biologically, and anatomically feel safe and to feel connected to people around us. It's not enough that we just simply aren't engaging with an outward stimulus like exercise or a fight or something like that. And people have a hard time kind of understanding this. If your lifestyle is stressed out, the hormonal response from that can become chronic. So it can be a case that you're just watching telly and your stress hormones are still a little bit active. Your heart rate is still going to be higher than normal. And when it's become a habit, because that is your lifestyle, one, you don't always notice it anymore because it's a habit. That means that it's become more automatic. You can't really pay so much attention to it anymore. It's just kind of part of your life, and it's nothing that you really pay attention to because it's automatic. It's a habit. That's the whole point of a habit. And by that same token, we also need to feel like we're connected towards the people that we're around. Human beings are a social species. If you're around people that you don't trust, one, it's very obvious. So like if you're just walking through the city and suddenly you get close to someone and you get a weird vibe from them, you don't feel safe. You will have a mild stress response when you're around them. If you have a lifestyle of that, that's no good. We need to be around people that we actually feel safe, that we can be open around and be ourselves around in order to have this parasympathetic lifestyle. So remove toxic people from your life. So as we're going through this, I want to come to you with a few different ideas of things that you can do to help to promote this parasympathetic nervous system from being the dominant nervous system state that you're in most of the time. So again, it should be a case of you wake up after a great night's sleep, so you wake up feeling relaxed and re-energized. Let's just say, for the sake of example, that you're going to the gym to work out first thing. That is your stressor for the day. And then for the rest of the day, it's focused on being around good people, having really good food, and getting through a job that you absolutely love to do, that you love to be at, that makes you feel full of life and passion for what you're doing. If you have that sort of lifestyle, this is much more easy to manage. However, we also have to understand that that's very much an ideal. That's an idealistic point of view, and while that is the case for many people, for many other people, it's not the case. It's the exact opposite. And this is directed at both sets of people, no matter what your life circumstances are, because when we're chronically stressed out, or if we're just stressed out every so often, and this could just be the case of, hey, I need to recover from my exercise better, I need to be recovering from an old injury a lot better because it never really healed, or it's the case of you're chronically stressed out all the time. You always have cortisol and adrenaline going up to the point that your body gets depleted of adrenaline, and that just makes life pretty miserable at that point. But these are all aspects that are pretty simple and easy for most people to do, and to do safely and quickly and efficaciously. So number one, we're thinking about, how do I promote a parasympathetic lifestyle? Even if I have a very stressful lifestyle, these are things I can do to help mitigate the stress and help to get my body started with healing much more efficaciously. So number one, this can sound a little bit hippie-ish to people, and I really don't care, but this is grounding yourself. So making sure you're spending time outside with skin contact with nature. This means being barefoot in the grass as much as you can, touching like the plants that you walk by, hug a tree, get your feet in the ocean or the sand if that's applicable to your environment, but spending time where you can actually be outside in the sunshine, touching the earth itself. So why does this work, and why is this so effective for reducing stress in your body? Big thing is that the actual earth itself is full of negative ions called electrons. We're familiar with electrons. There's practically an infinite amount of them, and they will absorb into your body. There are legitimate scientific studies actually measuring this. I'll try to post those in the show notes after that if you actually need proof for that. Why does this help your body reduce stress? Number one, these electrons are negatively charged, and they can bind to your red blood cells. So if your red blood cells get coated in particles that have the same charge, they will repel each other. So just remember, like your basic science on magnets, if you have opposite charges, they attract. If you have same charges, they repel each other. So when my red blood cells become saturated with negatively charged electrons, they will repel each other, and that reduces the viscosity of your blood. So it's less thick, it's easier to move through, that reduces your blood pressure. And if we can reduce your blood pressure to a chronically appropriately low level, so it's chronically appropriate, it's where it needs to be most of the time, that drastically improves things like your cardiovascular health, because the big elastic arteries that branch off of your heart and have to succumb to the heart's pumping pressure, which is a lot of pressure, that gets damaged. Those arteries get damaged when your blood pressure is always really freaking high. And then that damage has to get healed, and that involves creating a plaque in the artery. And that's where we get a lot of coronary heart disease. Not from cholesterol, even though cholesterol will be involved in that, because you need cholesterol to be going to these sites of damage, because they help your cells to replicate and to heal. Cholesterol is used to heal your tissues. So it's nothing to do with cholesterol creating the damage. It doesn't damage your tissues. But that chronically high blood pressure, that's chronically stretching out those elastic arteries way too much all the time, that will create the damage. And so we definitely need that to be a lot lower. In addition, those electrons also act as antioxidants. So our metabolism is largely based around breathing in oxygen, and that fuels a lot of metabolic processes. And whenever there's metabolism going on, especially oxygen-based, there will be chemicals called free radicals that erupt from this. So they're metabolic byproducts, and in a way they're very natural. They're going to be produced. And what these free radicals means is like they're very unstable molecules. They're seeking electrons from other molecules in your body to absorb so that they can become stable. It's a basic chemical reaction. And they can absorb these electrons from things like DNA, from things like your cell membranes, and that will damage them. So you can imagine that if you have a lot of free radicals that aren't being taken care of appropriately, then that allows a lot of damage to accrue in your body. That leads to a lot of inflammation, because now your body has to create swelling and has to try and heal these tissues that are getting damaged from your own metabolism, in essence. So these electrons from the earth will actually act as antioxidants, and now you have a supply of electrons that can come in and kind of fulfill the chemistry of these free radicals and make them stable, and now your body can just process them out of your body, no issue. So that helps to get ahead of inflammation. And even if you have a lot of inflammation in your body now, if you get started with grounding yourself, then that helps to stop the inflammation from further happening, so you can actually heal. If it's not the case that you're really getting this antioxidation, then your body can get stuck in an inflammatory response, and it just remains perpetual. So this isn't like hippie woohoo stuff. This is legitimate science. Get outside and touch the earth. You know, back in ye olden days, people are outside all the time. They're touching the ground all the time. They're sleeping all the time outside. That's a way of life, and it should be a way of life. But when you constantly have like a rubber sole in between you and the earth, you're not going to have that contact so much. And you can get devices that basically attach to the outside, like a stake that you can put inside your house, and you can touch that, and it will, by extension, ground you to the earth. There are things like that. You can get like computer setups where like your computer mouse pad is grounded to the outside, and that can help with that flow of electrons up into your body, which is pretty cool. I haven't used one of those yet, but I think it's nifty. I couldn't really use that with the apartment that I'm in. But anyways, moving on to number 2, what else can we do to perform like this parasympathetic work on my body, to have this very intentional control over making my nervous system to relax, to be more parasympathetic where I can heal? And the next one on the list is abdominal massage. So this is where I'm going to take something like a soft Pilates ball, you know, like those inflated rubbery balls that are really grippy. You can simply lay down on it with it on your belly button. So your belly button is right on top of it. You lay down on it and let it get deep into your belly. Now what this is going to do, it does a lot of things, but the biggest thing is that it helps to stimulate your vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is the largest nerve in your entire body, and its whole purpose is to create parasympathetic responses, which means that when you stimulate it, it helps to promote your brain's ability to think. It helps to cool down your body. It helps to bring your heart rate and therefore your body temp and your breathing rate down. Helps to decrease your blood pressure. Helps to increase your salivary production. Helps to increase your stomach acid production to an appropriate level. Helps to increase peristalsis. And you will also be massaging out your intestines when you do this, which can, in theory, help out with things like constipation. And it'll help your immune system and therefore your lymphatic system to work much more appropriately. So this is creating a very gentle massage inside your belly. Can be super uncomfortable the first time you do it, the first couple times, but it gradually becomes much more easy. And I always recommend to people go for at least 5 minutes where you just lay down, breathe really deeply, deep down into your belly, because you also want that big diaphragm muscle inside your ribcage to massage on the ball. So as you breathe, you'll actually massage your diaphragm across the ball. And so we can understand, like, if people are chronically sitting down and if they're chronically slouched over forward like so, your diaphragm can't expand. You're closing off your belly, and that reduces your ability to breathe. So it kind of makes it, by default, your breathing is much more shallow. It's in your chest. That will replicate the breathing that you have during a stress response, which means your body will experience a stress response just based off of your own breathing, because you're chronically doing stressful breathing, or even worse, through your mouth. And it's almost like you're doing low-grade gasping 24/7. And that will replicate the metabolism of stress, and it will keep you like that. Just simply because another big part of the abdominal massage is to help to regulate your breathing, so that kind of by default, your breathing is nice and slow and relaxed. And that's how we want it to be all the time, pretty much outside of exercise. And even in exercise, we want it to be as controlled as possible. We don't want it to get out of control. So this is what stimulating your vagus nerve does. And so abdominal massage,